I've closed down the presentation until you're ready. 7:30.
Okay, welcome to this meeting of the last planning meeting of the municipal year tonight. It is being live streamed to, yes, we've done that. Welcome to Borough Council. I'm the chair of the planning committee. The meeting has been web streamed to the public through the council's YouTube channel. During the meeting, when asked to speak, please use the push to talk button on the microphone in front of you, as we already know. This will allow the camera to pan in your general direction if you want to hear. Before we begin, I am obliged to read out the following fire notice. There is no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, then please could I ask that everybody make their way out of the building, down the main staircase and out of the main doors of the town hall and congregate at the entrance to Caldecott Park. An officer of the council will give instructions on when it is safe to return to the building. Moving on to the agenda, the first item of business is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of March. All those in favour, please show. And that's unanimous, thank you. I'll sign those minutes. Second item is to receive apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Good evening, Chair. Can you put your mic?
We have apologies from councillors Ward, Hassel and Edwards. And then we have Councillor Rabin substituting for Councillor Ward, but he's not here yet this evening. And Councillor Simpson-Vince substituting for Councillor Hassel.
Thanks for that. The message I had a bit earlier was the fact that Councillor Rabin can't make it tonight.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So if I can get you just cancel your microphone. Thank you. Thanks very much. Next item, declarations of interests. As defined by the Councillor's Code of Conduct for councillors. Non-pecuniary interests? None. Pecuniary interests? None. And notice under Section 106, Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. And no again. Excellent. In that case, then, we will continue on to item 4 of the agenda. And the first item is the only item on the agenda for matters of consideration, and that is with Chris Davis. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. The application before you for consideration tonight relates to the site known as Clifton Lakes in Clifton-on-Dunsmore, just off the A5. And the application is for change of use of the land to a recreational fishery, including the erection of a fence line to aid identification of a public right-of-way and associated works. The application includes retrospective amendments to the entrance of the site and regularisation of previously imported soils to the entrance of both this site and adjacent Hillcrest Lakes. Since the publication of the agenda, there has been an addendum circulated today. In short, some amendments have been made to the report and the draft notice. In paragraph 7.1 of the report, the reference to the highway name has been corrected to refer to the A5. Conditions 5 and 6 on the draft decision have been amended to include a deadline for submission of details of 2 months from the date of decision. Condition 10 on the draft decision has had punctuation adjusted to make it easier to understand, and a note to the applicant has been added to the bottom of the draft decision to advise the applicant of the need to seek permission and advice from the local planning authority prior to the installation of any signage. For those unfamiliar with the site, this is an aerial view. You have the A5 running here, with the main access to the site just here, and we are predominantly talking about this part of the site here. For references to the public right-of-way, this runs along parallel with the site, and you've got the River Avon coming just around the edge here. In terms of access from the A5, on the left-hand half of your screen, you can see the site as it was prior to the modifications to the entrance. As you can see, the bell mouth is quite narrow. And then to the right, you have the improved visibility splay, where you can see here the bell mouth has been considerably widened. The hedges have been cut back and instead replaced with a low-level timber fence, and the visibility therefore improved for both directions onto and off the A5. From within the site, these are some examples of the typical road surfaces. For the majority of them, they are semi-permanent surfaces that have been created with degrading tarmac or road planings or similar crushed materials. As you can see from these photos, they're all in varying states and surfaces, but they all appear cosmetically to be quite similar. For some ideas about the lakes and the vegetation around them, as you can see here, the lakes themselves are quite large and are generally surrounded, as well as by access roads, by a majority of mature planting, some of which is within the site and some of which is adjacent. And this generally means that for the vast majority of the time, most views into the site, except from the highway up here, are generally obscured at most, if not all, times of the year. Within the site, there is also a memorial garden, which is sited on a raised mound near to the entrance to the site. It's still in the process of being completed, but to give you an idea, it's pedestrian access only via these steps up here. At the moment, it's an earthen mound, which is gradually being landscaped. And at the top, it is a formalised garden, including a designated footpath leading to the memorial itself and a small area for picnicking. In terms of the proposed layout of the site, you can see in this interpretation here the general lakes, all indicated by pale blue. You also have some indicative ideas of the various types of natural and unnatural barriers and obstructions that have been used. Generally speaking, where possible, if routes need to be stopped up within the site, they are using materials regained mostly from felled and lost trees within the site, so that they re-landscape and blend into the background quicker. And then obviously this is the fence we mentioned before near the highway, which is a small post and rail timber fence of the type often seen around fields in the area. In terms of parking, the proposal is to concentrate the parking into 5 identified zones, which have all been located to provide ease of access to the various fishing pegs around the lakes, but they all have a limited visual impact and have been cited to be as unobtrusive as possible. There's a circular vehicular route which leads around the sites, linking up all the parking zones to prevent congestion, and this is therefore a means of controlling movements not only into the site, but around and within the site itself. In terms of fencing, we have 2 key types that are being used. As you can see here, this type of semi-woven fencing has been used or will be used to delineate the line for the public right-of-way. The idea of this fencing is it will be visually unobtrusive and will therefore detract from the footpath and the right-of-way as little as possible. And it will also allow for the vegetation to grow up and around it and further reduce its visual impact. Where something more established and permanent is required, such as by the entrances, we have here the more established post and rail timber fencing that you've seen images of in the photos tonight. Moving on to the key issues for the development. In terms of the principle of the development, it offers an opportunity to address historical environmental misuse of the site, whilst also supporting and enhancing the natural environment, to support a rural business within an appropriate countryside setting, and it provides an opportunity to promote physical and mental well-being for the users. Whilst historical activity has detrimentally affected the site, the applicant's efforts to address these issues and make effective yet appropriate use of the site carry material weight in favour of approval of the development. In terms of character, design and landscaping, as you've seen from the photos tonight, the existing mature planting already provides screening for a majority of the site. The remodelling that has taken place over time has created a varied landscape that adds visual interest while not appearing overly artificial. There have already been attempts to reduce the visual impact further through the replacement of man-made features with more natural alternatives, and to encourage nature to reclaim the landscape as much as possible while maintaining safe access to areas such as the fishing pegs. Where fencing is used, it's been designed to blend into the landscape as much as possible and/or is made of materials that weather quickly to reduce their visual starkness. Artificial lighting within and around the site is currently very limited and can be controlled through a condition, if approved, to ensure that further and appropriate lighting does not occur. In terms of highway safety and parking, the existing modifications to the access onto the A5 have significantly improved visibility and pose no highway safety concerns. The proposed formalised access route and the designating parking areas within the site are an improvement on the current ad hoc arrangements that do not have any means of flow or control. The proposed 90 parking spaces created would easily accommodate both anglers and visitors to the site. And the timely provision of the access and parking arrangements can be controlled through a condition if approved. Looking at environmental and flooding matters, these are gone into in detail in the report, but to summarise, the extensive contamination testing that has been undertaken across the site has led to the removal of contaminated material where necessary and appropriate controls being put in place. The detailed mitigation measures that have been put in place to ensure environmental protection can be controlled through conditions, if approved, to provide ongoing protection and reassurance. No ongoing drainage management controls are required for this site, and the introduction of further hard standing can be controlled through conditions, if approved, to ensure that surface water controls are not compromised and thereby mitigating any flood risk. Moving on to ecology, the biodiversity and habitat enhancements are key to this development. A significant proportion of the site has been allowed to re-wild, providing habitats and feeding opportunities for a variety of species. Additional planting can and would be controlled through a condition, if approved, to ensure suitability and longevity. And external lighting can be controlled through a condition, if approved, to ensure it does not adversely affect protected species. In terms of technical consultations, the applicant has worked extensively with the Council's environmental health team to address contamination concerns and bring the site to a standard that is no longer of environmental concern. No objections to this development have been raised by National Highways, the County Highway Authority, County Flood Risk Management, the County Rights of Way team, or the Environment Agency. In terms of the planning balance, the proposed use facilitates rural leisure facilities in a rural area. The applicant has made significant efforts to redress the historical misuse of this site. Efforts already made within the site and the additional planting and works proposed mean the overall benefits of the improved appearance of the site outweigh the visual harm originally caused both by the unauthorised activity and the installation of new entrance fencing. They also mitigate for the impact of formalised vehicular and pedestrian routes around the site as part of the proposed fishing venture. Whilst the historical activity on the site has had a detrimental effect on it, the applicant's continued efforts to redress these issues, as well as make effective yet appropriate use of the site, carry material weight. There are no highway safety concerns relating to this development, and the distribution of parking within the site significantly reduces the visual impact of it, whilst enabling patrons of all levels of mobility to access the site with greater ease. This development complies with all relevant local and national planning policies, as well as the ethos of the Clifton-on-Dunsmore Parish Plan. Overall, this development represents an opportunity to redress harm caused by the historical misuse of the site and will create an acceptable form of development for this rural location. The application process has enabled thorough testing of contamination within the site, direct action to address it where necessary, and the development of ongoing management procedures to ensure similar issues do not reoccur in the future, and that controls will be in place for the longer term. The proposed use would enable the site to continue to be managed responsibly and in a manner that enhances rather than detracts from the setting in which it's located. An approval of it would be with a caveat of a series of conditions to control and ensure this. The recommendation is therefore that this application be approved, subject to the conditions and informatives set out in the draft decision notice appended to the agenda report and in the circulated addendum to that report, and that the Chief Officer for Growth and Investment be given delegated authority to make minor amendments to the conditions and informatives outlined in those documents. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks for that presentation. Have we got any points of clarification to the officer? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you for your, again, very thorough report. Just a few questions of clarity. I'd like, this site is obviously, the biodiversity is important. Can you tell us how positive this is in any percentage form? This is? That's my first question. The second question is about security of the site and what level of gating there is to stop this site being misused in any way going forward. And the third one is probably more a commentary. When I see the pictures of the memorial, I can see no access for anybody of reduced mobility. And I just wanted to confirm those 3 points.
Through you, Chair. First, with regards to the biodiversity net gain, due to the large amount of natural rewilding of the site, it would be difficult to put a percentage on that. But detailed in the report are the existing levels of biodiversity and the ways in which, if members are minded to approve, we could use conditions to ensure that this is further enhanced and protected. With regards to security, when the site is not in use, that fencing you saw on the photos also has a secure barred gate that blocks the access, and access is therefore controlled by the owners of the site so that it is not left open to accessibility when there is not someone there to control it. And with regards to mobility to the memorial mound, that's noted, and members, if they wished, could seek that we control some sort of ramped access there as well, because there is a facility that would enable us to do that from the access road if necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Lawrence, virtually taking the words from my mouth in terms of access to the memorial garden for people who are with impaired mobility, perhaps on a scooter or perhaps in a wheelchair, where the only access you showed us was a steep set of stairs. Is the surface going to be sufficiently compacted that you could use a mobility scooter up there, you could use a wheelchair up there to get to the memorial garden seating area? Because I think that's quite an important point. I think something we're being asked to do as a council, let's see the private sector do the same.
Through you, Chair, and following on from the advice I gave to you, Councillor Lawrence, it's certainly something to be looked at. Where the steps are represents the steepest side of that bank. As you go around to the back of it, the bank shallows significantly, and it's certainly something within members' gifts to consider requesting that a more formalised ramped access is there. Once you're at the top, rather than being a sort of rounded mound, the top of it is very flat and level. So it would just be a question of a connecting ramp to get from the access roads up to that level area.
Yes, it's also the surfacing materials that you use when you get up to the garden.
Following on in that case, the surfacing that's been used is an all-weather material that's level, drains naturally and would be easy to roll across. Obviously, as said, it's in members' gift with regards to the ramp to get up there, and that is something we could look at if members want to. So as there is no ramp proposed at the moment, we don't have surfacing details for that. But once they got up there, the use of the shale chippings means that you have a stable, drainable surface in all weathers. I actually went onto the site myself in heavy rain, and I can confirm it. There's no slip, there's no movement up there. It's very stable.
Councillor Simpson-Vince.
I think we're all on a roll tonight because I had Councillor Lawrence's third question as my first question. So I think if it's within our gift, let's do that, because I think we all seem to be going along the same lines. My other question is actually around the access, because I don't fish, but I know people that are into fishing and they do it at night as well. So what's the access to the site for overnight? For, you know, saying if there's nobody there, the gates will be closed, but actually with a lot of fishing lakes, there's always somebody there fishing. So just wondered how that's going to be sorted.
Yep, as previously advised, when access to the site is controlled, so therefore essentially you can't fish on there without somebody there, there is very limited artificial lighting, and that's something we would probably look to keep to a minimum where at all possible. So it's not the applicant's intention to propose night fishing on this site. And again, if they were to look at something like that, we would have that condition about lighting to make sure that if lighting was needed for night fishing, it can still be done in a way that is safe to be able to get down there, but doesn't result in any adverse impact either visually or on biodiversity. But the applicant's intention is essentially daytime fishing only.
Sorry, Chair, can I just come back? There's intention isn't that strong. And fishermen do tend to turn up with head torches and torches. So, and if they're driving to one of those parking areas at, say, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the evening and thinking, oh, I'm going to be here for the night, actually, they kind of bring their own lights with them. So just, yeah, that doesn't feel quite as tied down.
Through you, Chair. To put it another way then, they would not be able to be on there without the owner's express permission and the means of access. The owners do not intend to provide access at night, and it wouldn't be a case of we'll open the gate and leave you to it. So it wouldn't be, for your example, they arrive at, say, 5 o'clock and they plan to fish all night, because they would have had to pre-arrange with the owners when they plan to go, and they would be advised by the owners there'd be no nighttime fishing.
We've got Richard coming in.
Yeah, just to come back on that point, because I think part of the concern was also about security, was what I was actually picking up on. I don't know if that's correct, Councillor. I'm aware also that fishing can be a popular sport at night, and actually what fishing people want is actually a low level of illumination, because they don't want that to disturb what they're trying to catch. So like you said, we'll bring their own head torches and stuff. Obviously, it's there are no hours of use restriction on here. I think it's probably, because of its location, it's probably one down for the owner to how they manage the site. The site has been obviously prone to, in the past, to unauthorised access. But I think this is obviously, the ownership is now, I will understand, it's obviously now changed. And I think, that can be controlled by the new owner. They may, on certain sites, it may be that those that want to fish, have access through the 5-bar gates, whether it's whether it's a padlocks or stuff, or whether it's actually controlled by cameras or more sophisticated security on site. I guess that will be down to them and how they manage that. But I think it has, we'll obviously be aware of if there's any potential unauthorised access to the site, because we have been in the past. So I think it is a site that is on our radar. But to some extent, if there are people coming and going at all hours, to some extent that will bring its own surveillance to the site.
Councillor Srivastava.
Thank you. The site can be used by general public or only member of the fishing club or something?
Through you, Chair. As previously mentioned, while it's available to the general public, it would be by arrangement with the owners of the site, but it's not exclusively for a particular fishing club's use only. So if somebody wanted to arrange to go and fish and they didn't belong to a particular organisation, it would be directly through arrangement with the owners rather than because they have membership to a particular club. And the same would be for the Memorial Garden.
Okay, it might be worth noting that some fish that are stocked in lakes such as that are very, very expensive. So it would be in the owner's interest to make sure only people that are allowed access get in there to fish. Believe you me. Okay, in that case then we'll move on to the debate. Who would like to start off things? I'll just like to add one point, is the fact that this is known to the council for many years. Councillor Sanderson will know this. It's come before the committee a long time, many times, and it probably was the previous owner that's actually lying in the Memorial Garden. Am I right in thinking that? Yeah, that's what it was constructed for, I believe.
I believe, well, I don't know about the Memorial Garden, but I believe the former owner may be on the site, yeah.
is the case, and that's probably why that was constructed for his benefit. Right, let's move on. Councillor Lawrence.
I would propose approval, but with the added condition I think we've already discussed about improving the access to the memorial mound. I think we just want to ensure that it's also suitable, as been mentioned. We believe what you say, but if we could add that somehow into that condition. We would leave the wording to yourselves, to you as the officers, but that's my proposal, that we should approve with that additional condition.
Councillor Sanderson.
Chair, I'm quite happy to second that with the amendment in terms of disability access.
Okay, we've got any further speakers? No more comments? Okay, in that case then we'll move to the vote with that. Are you happy with that condition? Okay, let's move to the vote then. All those in favour of approval, please show. Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you.
So that's been approved.
That's been approved then. Right, back to the agenda. Advance notice of site visits.
I have none further to add, thank you, Chair.
Okay, and then delegated decisions. Come on, let's somebody say the class. Noted, exactly. Now, as you know, it's the last planning meeting of the municipal year, and it's customary to give the planners, the planning committee members, and the officers a little chocolate gift right at the very end of the meeting. You know, as a thank you for all your good works over the municipal year. So, with that, we'll sign off.